Obesity is definitely one symptom of the body not able to function and burn. Low muscle mass is also sarcopenia is a huge issue because the body has to cannibalize itself. And most of these nutrients lie within muscle. That's where our energy factories are in the mitochondria, and they lie in muscles. So if it doesn't have enough, it's got to cannibalize it somewhere. So having low muscle is a huge issue, which we know can go to a lot of different places, dementia, osteoporosis, all that.
Welcome to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jenn, talking wellness and weight loss for real life. We're here to clear up the myths, misinformation, bad science, and marketing to teach you how to eat and how to cheat. Are you ready? I'm having salad with a side of fries. Hey friend, welcome back to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm Jenn Trepic, your host and health coach, here with you every week for wellness without the weirdness, as we always say. Now, if you're a longtime listener, you've heard me talk about this theme in a few episodes. Whenever we talk about stress, we talk about how the biological process that was designed to save our lives now actually contributing to our demise, because our modern world creates a massive challenge for this primitive response. And I've talked about it with, the toxic load that we experience. We talk about our liver and detox. And so really, it's all the consequences of living in our modern world that's just evolved far faster than our bodies. Today, I have an absolutely incredible expert to help us dig deeper into this and better understand it all. So let me introduce you. She's been a clinical community pharmacist in Oklahoma for over 30 years. Her popular TEDx University of Tulsa talk, Obesity, the Modern Famine, highlights her innovative approach to community health, where she combines medical insight with her personal journey with obesity. Harnessing a profound love for applied science and an empathetic approach, she's made it her mission to address patient challenges innovatively, often realizing the pivotal solutions stem from meaningful conversations. An advocate for proactive health, her expertise lies in melding the intricacies of food and stress biochemistry with traditional pharmacy. Her journey of personal health, managing obesity from a young age and losing 150 pounds, fuels her understanding and passion for proactive health management. So you see why when she and I connected, we had so much to talk about. She's a proud alumnus of the University of Oklahoma. She boasts a bachelor's of science in both zoology and pharmacy, and later completed her doctorate of pharmacy in 2005. Moreover, her innovative stake in the pharmacy profession has positioned her as a go-to consultant for industry giants like Designs for Health and InBody. A lifelong resident of Tulsa, Oklahoma, she cherishes her 25-year bond with her supportive husband, and together they nurture 3 young adults. Please help me welcome Dr. Kathy Campbell.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome officially to the Salad with a Side of Fries community.
My pleasure to be here. And like I said when we first met, I love that title. I mean, that is just the perfect meal right there.
Thank you. Yes. And it's certainly gotten to the point where if somebody hears that and they're like, I don't get it, I'm like, I don't know that we'll be friends. Right. Yeah. Just kidding, but kind of. All right. So I want to hear more of your story. If we can share that with everybody, because, one of my favorite things, and I think what aligns us is how we explain things and sort of bridge both the sciencey stuff with the practical stuff. Before we do that, though, let's tell our members what they're getting really quick. So members, your recipe this week is for chicken and white bean stuffed peppers. This is another one that's super easy. It's like 5 minutes to put it together, and the oven does the rest of the work. Perfect to have leftovers for another meal. That could be breakfast or lunch the next day. It's packed with protein and fiber, exactly what we talk about all the time, that we want every time we eat. And because it's the last month of the quarter, it's time for your quarterly live Q&A. And because everyone at Salad with a Side of Fries loved coming together, we're doing this one as a group on Zoom. Now, I offered you 2 times in the month of September so that you could find something that fits your schedule. There is one remaining. So if you want in on this, jump into the membership now. If you want the recipe or to join our live Q&A, be sure you're a member. Go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries for just $10 a month. You get weekly recipes, a monthly article or tool, extra discounts from me and our partners, plus access to live Q&A sessions. It's a total deal. I say it all the time. It's a steal because when you take advantage of the full offerings, you're saving far more than that $10 cost. It's seriously a no-brainer way to show yourself that your health is a priority. Plus, being a member supports this podcast to this community so we can continue to do this with you every single week. So remember, you're going to go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries, or actually just click the link in the episode notes because then you don't have to remember a whole thing. Once you're there, you click the little I agree and then support now. Enter your email and payment info, click subscribe, and you're all set. You'll get this week's recipe for chicken and white bean stuffed peppers and access to the final quarterly live Q&A for Q3 2024. Okay, Dr. Kathy, spotlight on you. So from your bio, we know that you have personal experience with weight management, but will you tell us more of that story and how that, interplays with everything you know from studying pharmacy?
Yeah, it's definitely a critical piece of how I process and think about my patients' health and well-being because I've been living it my whole life. I grew up in Oklahoma and I was big in a big family. Okay, I was 100 pounds at 5 years old in 1972. I was 200 pounds at 10 and 275 as I graduated high school. I had a 350-pound grandfather in the Great Depression. Okay.
Wow.
So I knew, I've been working on it my whole life, but I knew it wasn't just about the food because I was eating very different, less than the people around me. And I was manifesting a different way. And so the lucky thing for me is that I was big in a big family and I wasn't burdened with the psychological trauma of being overweight, even though I was back then, I think 10% of the population held on to weight. And that was our family. We were the ones that were going to survive when all you skinny people died, right? When the famine hit, we were going to keep the genetics going. And so I knew inherently that it was different. Even though I tried it, I did 20 years of low-fat eating and I ate less and exercised more. I did it all, but it didn't always work. And I couldn't quite figure out why. And then I was really good in science. And so I went and got a few science degrees, always processing in some not always overt way my own experience through the science. Like we all do. It's like we just can't help but have that lens to look through. And then I started taking care of patients and I started living a different life. I started living, a new wife and then new mom. And at the same time that I became a new mom, I was also a new pharmacy owner. And so I could see my body fluctuate with the not different eating, because that was actually very consistent. But it was the different conditions of my life that had my body flex a different way. And so really, I'm a practicing community pharmacist. I call myself a wellness pharmacist. And that is somebody who really helps their patients not need medicines. And I'm not against medications. I'm actually the expert. And if you're taking any medications, like 7 out of 10 Americans are, you need an expert helping you with that. I'm not against medications. I am against people needing them. And I've been practicing in my community for 32 years, 4 generations of patients. So I've known some of them longer than I knew my mom. So I didn't want them to be sick. So I started taking this knowledge and applying it to them aging well. And I also started from a business model, a health coaching weight loss program. And I was challenged to come forth with my ideas. All that decades of studying it personally, I was asked to apply it and create a program. And really, to me, it's making sure you have the chemistry to work. It's metabolic optimization, but people can't hear that, right. So I took my journey. And I also was very aware, even as a college student, that I was going to have kids who had my genetics. And I had to figure that out for them. So my genetics are just awesome in the right environment. The problem isn't our genetics. Like you said in the introduction, the problem is we've had a catastrophic environmental change for our human self. And we have not evolved. I don't know that we will evolve to actually survive the current environment. So what I do is I help my patients get that environment right as they can, just like you are. I mean, what's different though is I'm able to factor in those medications and those dysfunctions that they may be experiencing. I'm able to really factor that into their strategy, their health strategy, or however we craft that environment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, everything you're speaking to is, bringing together what we know about how the body works and what we've learned from modern medicine and pharmacology, right? And figuring out how those things play together or don't play together, for some of us.
Well, it's really interesting because right now there's a big food is medicine initiative, but the people who know food don't know medicine, and the people who know medicine don't know food. So there's this real gap in the communications to patients on how they interact with that. And I just know as a pharmacist, the medications that I'm tasked with dispensing are only effective as an adjunct to diet and exercise. So I felt compelled to start really helping patients with that. And it's kind of a generational how challenged they are as to their knowledge, their ancestral knowledge. Do they know how to cook? Do they care? Are they tired of cooking? Are they widowed? There's so many little factors that we get to help patients with. But what's beautiful is once they see it, they can never unsee it. And that's where the longevity of health can actually really emerge. It's really exciting. It's really exciting.
Yeah. And I think what you're seeing with your patients, and it's something I see all the time too, when people come to me, most people are overfed and undernourished, right? And, that ends up at a place of metabolic dysfunction, insulin resistance, right? We observe it as obesity. And then your book title is Obesity, the Modern Famine, right? And it's kind of the same thing in different words, but I'd love to hear how you explain why and how this is the truth.
Yeah, I mean, when you really understand the metabolic process and the biochemistry of the body, you just have to have enough chemistry to work. Just like baking a cake. Let's have half the ingredients of 3 of the 4 and see how that cake turns out. Well, I think we're in that kind of environment where none of us, I mean, it's very difficult in our current culture to have an adequate amount of chemistry. Now, it's not just nutrition, but that's a huge part of it. I've got it down to about 5 different things, and I tease those out in the book. The critical chemistries I see as the body is 1 is nutrients, 2 is oxygen, sunlight, water, and connection, love and connection. And so I kind of, when I speak to my peers, I call it pharmacology, food pharmacology, and the hardest one is stress pharmacology. It really is that bucket of chemistry for, you mentioned stress, but the converse of stress is love and connection. So they're all in that bucket. And yes, we have a lot of negative, but I think what the research is showing, we don't have enough positive, being isolated and being alone. So I tease all that out. When you don't have those, the human species is very challenged to function optimally. And I think that's what we've been medicating for the last 30 or 40 years. And that's why we have such a epidemic of chronic disease right now, is because we just don't have enough of what we literally need to run the biochemistry and to function well.
And so there's so many pieces with this, right? Because when any one of those 5 elements isn't, I sort of think of it like a spectrum, right? There's sufficient, suboptimal, right?
Yeah,
Optimal, right? And so for most people, and in the context of your book and, your TEDx talk, it's obesity is one symptom, right? Of all of these things sort of going haywire or, not having enough input to balance all of it. What are some of the other consequences or expressions of, our primitive caveman biology in conflict with our modern world?
Great question. First, I would refer you to a concept called the triage theory of aging. And so Dr. Bruce Ames has a concept where he says if you don't have enough critical nutrients, the body's going to have to triage and prioritize where those go to. And so it's kind of like robbing Peter to pay Paul. If you have very little vitamin K, your body's going to take it to the very most important place so that your short term survival is prioritized over the long term survival. So that might mean you don't bleed out, you can have blood clotting versus having bone repair and cardiovascular repair. Both are critical, but you only get to do that long term repair when you have plenty around. So there's that. You said obesity is definitely one symptom of the body not able to function and burn. Low muscle mass is also sarcopenia is a huge issue because the body has to cannibalize itself. And most of these nutrients lie within muscle. That's where our energy factories are in the mitochondria, and they lie in muscles. So if it doesn't have enough, it's got to cannibalize it somewhere. So having low muscle is a huge issue, which we know can go to a lot of different places, dementia, osteoporosis, all that. I think depression is definitely a side effect of the body not having enough. It makes sense that if you're not able to make enough energy, your body is going to say, oh, let's make her tired. Let's lower that cognitive function. Let's make her a little irritable so nobody bugs her, right? So I think people talk about mental health, having a mental health problem in the United States. And I often say, I think we have a physical health issue that's manifesting in a diminished functioning brain. And that's kind of where some of the research is coming. So those are a few of it. But I think weight is the biggest symptom that everybody overlooks, right? If you have a temperature, they look for a fever. But if you're overweight, they just assume you're fat and lazy. And that's always just bugged the heck out of me.
1,000%. And where you're going with this is exactly where my head was going too, is that there's this system-wide piece of the responsibility, right? Like we see it coming from the system, but the solution, as you put it, is, for lack of a better word, blamed on the individual. It's looked at as, a personal failure. Same thing, it's almost the same thing with the mental health piece, right? Whatever it is, we're looking at it as the remedy being about the individual failure, but the cause is so systemic.
It is so systemic. It is.
So I want to double click on that after we take a quick break to highlight our partner for this episode. Big thanks to Snap Cleaning Products for supporting Salad with a Side of Fries. Make household and industrial cleaning a snap with their eco-friendly, economical, multi-purpose Snap products. Snap's concentrated, multi-purpose formulas perform light to industrial strength jobs all in one bottle. Snap products give you the cleaning power of a variety of cleaners, saving you time, money, and valuable storage space. And Snap products were developed with the environment in mind, using plant-based ingredients that are biodegradable, phosphate-free, non-toxic, and bottled in recyclable containers. So today we're talking about this mismatch between human biology in our modern world and the chemicals in our world, especially our cleaning products, are another example of that. So that's why I like Snap. The triple enzyme laundry detergent actually breaks down stains to remove them because it's made of enzymes. And it's just $13.95 for a 40-ounce bottle or container that does up to 80 loads of laundry. It's truly free of chemicals and additives. The Snap dishwashing liquid is like magic. I'm probably not supposed to say that, but it feels like magic to me because dishes just wipe clean. That one's only $11.95 for a 32-ounce bottle. And maybe you're ready to upgrade your whole household cleaning products in one fell swoop. You could do that with the Snap Pack for just $89.95. And all these prices are before your discount and free shipping, because you're a Salad with a Side of Fries listener. So you get 10% off and free shipping. Simply text the word CLEAN, CLEAN, to 844-947-4846. You'll receive the link and coupon code right to your phone. Again, simply text the word CLEAN, CLEAN, to 844-947-4846 to try Snap, in particular, the triple enzyme laundry detergent, or get the Snap Pack for 10% off and free shipping. This is a toll-free number. Standard text and data rates may apply. Okay, Dr. Kathy, so before the break, we were talking about sort of this interplay between a system cause and an individual solution. And I see it all the time with people who come to me. They feel like they've failed and it's their fault. And I tell them all the time, you haven't failed. All of these other things have failed you. And I'm curious to hear from your perspective, like, can you speak to sort of both sides of this equation and what you recommend?
You just nailed it. I have patients that come to me as well that are beaten down and ashamed and self-flagellating. And the whole game for the human brain and the human body is survival, right? Everything it does, every adjustment, every thought it puts out there is through this lens of survival. So I often have to acknowledge them and get them to acknowledge, oh, no, 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 no. I don't need you to be mad at yourself. You've survived. If you want to be mad, we need to look at the real culprits. And the real culprits is the environment that our culture has crafted for whatever reason. And I actually consider it somewhat of a grooming. Our culture has been groomed to accept this slow burn of environmental shift. They need to see that their body is surviving a toxic environment. I said, I need you to get mad out there, because that mad will have you do radical things like cook and shop differently and change targeted and maybe do some things that will be a little bit difficult until they become more habitual. So it really is the body surviving. And everybody has to get that what the body is doing is 100% of the time appropriate to the environment with which it is surviving. Okay. It's not just this macro environment of like the air around us. It's also the internal environment of what's going on within the cellular level. So if there's a threat inside the cell, we know now that the mitochondria are running the show to adjust what the organism does so you can survive. And often that looks like curled up under a rock. That's the kind of survival many of us come in. And that's why I see depression. That's why we see this. I said, no, your body, bless its heart, is just trying to make it through the day with this chaos that we're all living in. I call it culture, and I think we've talked about that before. And when I think about culture, I literally think about a petri dish. And they call that medium, that agar plate, to culture something. So I often have people start seeing themselves as the bacteria on the petri dish. And how are you growing? And what is in that petri dish? Is it nuggets and fries? Is it a toxic work environment? Is it sucralose? Is it, all these little things contribute to how the bacteria or the organism thrives. And so if we can craft the culture just right, it's amazing what we can do to have a different outcome.
Yeah. So, I love this idea to recognize the grooming of the culture around us and society and, the systems, and then the culture of the individual. So how can we start to identify the pieces, even to really fully see clearly our own health culture, and then making some tweaks for big impact to start to make some progress?
It's a great question. And I think we all have to start with our own function. Now, often when your body becomes dysfunctional, it's like the frog being boiled in water. It doesn't know it's happening, right? So often there are wake-up calls like, oh my gosh, something hurts, or I got anxious, or I couldn't walk that hill like I used to. So those are some things that should be assessed as functional. And we're just looking for changes in function. Really, to operate in a normal way is kind of function. And that really is what the foundation of health is, what I see. Now, can we operate in a normal way at 90? And what does that look like? I think what you're doing and the internet's vast amount of information in some ways can be an incredible tool.
I was going to say edged sword.
It can be. It definitely can be. But that's where you find a team around you to help interpret that information within the context of you, because you're the only you. And I want everybody to get that. You're the only biochemical you. You're a unique organism living in a unique life with a unique history. And so you have to create around you a team. And I call it a partners in health team. So, You need somebody that is a coach. You need a farmer. You need a doctor. You need a physical therapist. You need a massage therapist. If you don't have a good hairdresser on there, you're missing out. They're all part of almost a mirror, because often we're the last ones to know when the function slips. But that's an honest journeying through our health. I think that's a great place to start. And then you just seek. I mean, I've often said about my patients and my relationship, what I know doesn't matter. It's not really where the health happens. It's what they know and they can do every day to get outcomes. So it is in the practicing. If something's not working, you got to kind of identify it and then practice something different and see if that works. Have an honest assessment with that. I love, you mentioned the word earlier, responsibility. It's a very interesting word because often people get kind of triggered by that word, but I think of it as the ability to respond. And I just love having the ability to respond in life, but especially with regard to my health. I have the ability to do something else. And with that internet, we have a lot more tools. We have a lot more information. Again, it might require getting some help with that. I hope people do. And that's really what I'm doing quite often now, is just people come to me and say, hey, what do you think? And it makes a big difference because then they go out and start tweaking their lives. And that's where the gold happens.
Yeah, I love what you're saying about, sort of prioritizing what we know for ourselves to be true for our own body, no matter what any expert or, super knowledgeable human says, that each one of us is the expert of our own body. And then the other piece of that is that everything is kind of this giant experiment. And approaching it that way, I think, again, going back to that feeling of failure can lift the weight off our shoulders to be like, look, we're going to see. And if it doesn't work, we're going to let that go, right. That we're going to keep trying different things. And to hear you say that, I think reinforces that is the process rather than somebody feeling like, I tried everything. Something must be wrong with me.
It's exactly right. And, the thing we've all tried is to eat less and exercise more, and let me tell you, there's nobody stronger than somebody who's dieted for 40 years. Those are some strong people, and they're completely malnourished. The sickest people I see right now are middle-aged, normal weight women who have starved for 40 years and are sarcopenic, low muscle. And that's not what I'm up to. I want us to rock and roll all the way through. And I personally don't want a body that works if I'd have a brain that doesn't work. So those things are really critical. One other thing I think it might be helpful to share, a little bit back to that culture. I really started thinking about the concept of culture about 15 years ago. There was an Olympics. And given that we just got through an Olympics, I think everybody might get this. I heard a commercial for an athletic company, and all I heard was the voice of an athlete, Olympian, saying, "I haven't had dessert in 3 years."
Oh my God!
That's what I said. I was like, "Oh my gosh, wow, that's pretty wild." And then I started thinking, what would the life of an Olympian look like? What would they eat? What would they read? How would they sleep? Who would they talk to? What air would they breathe? Every bit of that life, as radical as it is, and it is radical, but it's accepted in our society because it's designed to create a gold medal, right? So they carefully crafted that culture. And then I started asking myself, well, what's my culture? What's my health culture? And what's my gold medal? And I share that a little bit in the TED Talk. My gold medal is to be about 90 and twerk at my granddaughter's wedding. That's what I want. But I'm going to have to really craft a Olympic size, maybe not quite that difficult, but with that much intention, a culture that will produce that, right? And so that really helped me in that whole thing of how do we craft a culture? How do you identify it? And a lot of times is it working? How's it working? And to have a real honest self-reflection and maybe a reflection with a coach as well.
Yeah, for sure. I love that you brought that up. So we did a nutrition nugget bonus episode about what we can learn from Olympic athletes in August of this year. And then 2 years ago with the Olympics, we did another one that looked at the nutrition and the training of Olympians and the team that they surround themselves with and all of these things. So it speaks exactly to what you were saying too, about having this circle of experts and guides around you, to help with that.
It's very intentional. And I think the big thing is it's not just the default culture, because the default culture will kill you right now and is killing us right now. And so, like your audience, clearly they are intentional, or they wouldn't be tuning in, about gathering information and then taking appropriate actions where they can to contribute to a better journey or a different journey.
Yeah. So that makes me think of, so we have what's in the culture, what's in the zeitgeist right now, thinking about, the information that's out there, gathering it, trying to make decisions for ourselves, and also being groomed that, pill bottles have the answer and medications and prescriptions fix this, right? It makes me think of GLP-1s. And I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you as a pharmacist to speak to, your thoughts on this, both from the biological side and from the cultural side.
Yeah, I definitely have thoughts about it. And in some ways, there are some really exciting things about this category of drugs, but not exactly what medicine is excited about. What I'm excited about is medicine is no longer blaming and shaming the patient.
Yes.
Now, on the other side of that, nobody is asking why 90% of our population needs it. And they're not asking why it's being approved for 5-year-olds. Okay. And they're not questioning the culture that is creating the chaos. Now, GLP-1 is a naturally occurring peptide. So we know naturally GLP-1 is produced in the gut, but with obesity, it goes down. Why? We aren't even asking why it goes down, but we do know diet will change it. We know fiber will change it. We know certain phyto-rich chemicals as far as foods and herbs and those products, we can change that. So the environment changed will alter the GLP-1 status. Now, many people will say, well, we can't wait till that happens. Well, the problem is if we just do the GLP-1 and not deal with these underlying deficiencies, we're going to create more problems. And that's what part of the things we're seeing is people that are on these injectables, and they can be life-altering, they can be tools in the toolbox, but the body is having to cannibalize muscle to get those nutrients to actually produce the energy that it needs. Severe fatigue will often show up, again, compromising energy production. And I've been coaching patients who are diabetics on these medicines for a long time, and what we found is if we didn't get the nutrition adequate and get enough of the right stuff in, which is basically plant and protein, the drug didn't even work well. Okay. And it especially didn't work without the, I think, potentially catastrophic side effect of muscle wasting.
Yeah.
I have a body composition machine behind me, and I can see the wasting that happens. And it concerns me because we know low muscle is a beeline for dementia. And I don't think any of us want to trade that and have that be the case. I think, again, I'm much more about let's fix the problem. The problem's the culture. Okay. Is it easy? No. It's not, but it's not hard because of our individual people. It's hard because we have a culture that prioritizes profit over people. And it's not just the grooming of that health is in the pill bottle. There's been a grooming that food is in the drive-thru, and that kids' meals are the foundational human ingestion. Kids are trained from conception on that kids' meals are what they eat. And that was a catastrophic change when both those things happen.
Yeah. And the piece that I see, overarching all of it, from people in my social circle to clients and people that I interview and experts, is that this so-called solution is put on such a pedestal that it inherently shames and blames anyone who's not using them And the side effects, to your point, are almost like we are back to what I remember of the 90s of everybody literally dying to be thin.
Yeah, I'm old enough to remember a product called Fen-Phen,
Yeah, for sure.
and it caused catastrophic cardiovascular impact. I am hoping we don't end up with that, but the problem is we're not dealing with the fundamentals. And it's not just about the biology of nutrients, though that's a huge part. The people that are on the GLP-1s don't want to eat. Well, they weren't eating well to begin with. So we went from out of the pan into the fire with regard to that. The other thing is a huge driver of weight is the biochemistry of stress. The biochemistry of stress is cortisol, it's adrenaline, it's insulin. And often, I mean, like in some studies, 50% of the time, there's almost a Cushing-like syndrome that's contributing to the weight. And so we have to deal with both of those. And you're not getting either of those dealt with well in medicine. And if doctors are kind of shaming, patients to go on these medications or whoever it is, it's really irresponsible not to put people into a nutrition or a lifestyle program that actually supports it. And that's one of the things as a pharmacist, I've been very effective as pharmacist-led lifestyle. Why? Because 7 out of 10 patients are on medicines and those mess everything up sometimes. Even if they don't intend to, there are some negative outcomes on some of these things. So I think you're right. I think we have to have a bigger picture. Medicine, I don't trust to do that. I don't trust pharmacy to do that because it's kind of been run by corporate entities. It's going to take mamas to do that. It's going to take the chief medical officer to really look at the environment of their home, the environment of their family, to seek out help and to be the radical thing in our society and clean that up. And that's what I hope that people get, that I'm part of their support, you're part of their support, and there's more of us out here.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a beautiful place to put a pin in it. May everybody be the radical person in their culture and community to make the shift.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Love it. All right. I think it's time for our rapid fire off topic questions. Are you ready?
I guess.
What's the best thing you've done for your health this week? And what's the naughtiest thing you've done related to your health this week? Because, balance, not that anything's really naughty, but
Balance. Oh my goodness. Oh, I made this beautiful marinara last night. I came home from work and I like to cook big and then can in a canning jar and stick it in the refrigerator so it'll vacuum seal. So I cooked a big, beautiful marinara, had about 6 or 8 pints or quarts of marinara. So that's probably the best thing I've done this week. The naughtiest thing, I think probably I stayed working and didn't get up for about 6 hours. And so I was just pounding and it's a slippery slope, Sitting too much is a very insidious thing for our bodies. And so I'd say that's the naughtiest.
I'm with you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. If you weren't a community pharmacist, what would you do?
Oh, that's a great question. I would probably teach somehow, or I'd have my own home improvement service because I love home improvement and I do a drill driver really well. So I like doing that as a craft kind of, and I've remodeled kitchens and do that kind of stuff.
I'm so impressed. All right. Your favorite book on any topic other than your area of expertise, or you could give us a fiction book.
Oh, gosh. That's a tough one. Oh, gosh. You really took me off from there. Feeling Good. Feeling Good is a classic of cognitive behavioral therapy. I've read it multiple times over my life. I've handed it out to a lot of people. It was the first time I got that I wasn't my thoughts. And I think that's a very powerful thing to really grasp. You're not your thoughts. You are your dreams, really. And to craft yourself that way. And that was the first time I actually was introduced to that concept.
Love it. If you could cure one ailment, disease, or sickness, what would it be? Cancer.
I would cure cancer. I think it's an insidious thing and it doesn't have to happen. What is it? 75% of everything we're dealing with chronic disease is preventable. And the rates of cancer are just insidious. They're going up and they're going earlier. So that's the one I would do.
Yeah. If you were a superhero, what would be your superpower?
My superpower is, I think I deliver my recommendations in such a way people are engaged and enrolled. I've had women my whole career saying, I don't know what you told my husband to do. I've been telling him that for 10 years and you tell him and he does it. So I think there is just a way I present and teach. And my staff, one of my staff says, Kathy, I've never seen anybody who presents with no judgment. There's no judgment. There's just an acceptance. So I think both of those things correlate to how I'm able to communicate love and commitment and encouragement.
Love that. What's your biggest pet peeve?
Doctors who don't see me important in patients' lives.
Oof, big one.
Yeah. As a pharmacist, they don't see that I have any input into patients' care. And I do.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I often recommend my clients talk to their pharmacist and ask questions of their pharmacist instead of trying to track down their physician.
Yeah, I mean, pharmacists should be the first line. They are around the globe. And really, one study that I was talking to a gentleman who studied longevity. And one of the things for the people that lived 110, 120 years is they always had access to healthcare when they needed it. And often it was alternative. And I asked him, how often was that a pharmacy and a pharmacist? He said, every time. So having access to that level of care early and often can keep you from going down that path. And our current society, the powers that be, the profit over people, are decimating that structure. So I encourage everybody to have a personal therapeutic relationship with a pharmacist.
Yes. All right, last one. In your opinion, what's the next frontier in wellness?
Genetics and microbiome. Those are going to be the big ones. You got to there's so many variables. There's so many variables of both of those. We have to resist that one size fits all and that reductionist thinking. But just like food, there's 26,000 chemicals they've identified in food, not 100 vitamins. And it's the same thing with regard to genetics. When we started diving into genetics, we thought we were going to get all these clear-cut answers. And the beauty of genetics is it's actually able to change in a minute based on the environment. So it is the environment, the terrain that has to be addressed to create the culture and the health you really want. And so I think that and the microbiome is basically just bugs with genetics. And so they're just two universes of potential and complexity, I would say. And then if you throw the universe of food chemistry into that, it's going to be a really exciting time. I hope it is not commercialized down to nothing. I hope people can grasp it. It's simple, but it ain't easy.
Yes.
And I hope our job is to help people manage the simple and not easy.
Amazing. I love how you put it. All right. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Kathy Campbell. Tell everybody how to connect with you, where to find your book, all the things.
So my book is Obesity, the Modern Famine. You can find it at Amazon. I believe we're on the Amazon Audible as well. Then I am at drkathysays.com, drkathysays.com. That's my website. You can get me through there. I'm at Dr. Kathy Says on Instagram. Feel free to reach out. My pharmacy is called Medicap, Owasso Wellness Pharmacy and Compounding in Owasso, Oklahoma. And feel free to track me down there. I'd be happy to visit with anybody.
I love it. And we'll put links to everything in the episode notes. Thank you again. Just truly appreciate your expertise and how you explain everything as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
All right, everybody. On Friday in this week's Nutrition Nugget, we're talking about PFAS, right? And weight gain specifically. So these are those forever chemicals. And there was a study published in 2023 that showed they may have more effect than nutrition choices when it comes to weight gain. So very fitting for this week's episode for sure. So we're going to get into it on Friday in this week's bonus episode, Nutrition Nugget. Be sure wherever you're listening, click the plus sign or the follow button, and then your app will alert you when the Nutrition Nugget is live on Friday morning. Well, as always, everybody, I'm your host, Jenn Trepeck. Connect with me on Instagram or all social media. I'm at Jenn Trepeck, JENNTREPECK. Website is asaladwithasideoffries.com. Pick your platform, send a message. I love nothing more than hearing from you. So please send your questions, your takeaways, your ideas. This is also the easiest way to learn more about working with me as your health coach. And of course, if you are not already, join our membership program by going to glow.fm/saladwithasideoffries. This shows your support for this podcast, this community, and most importantly, it supports your health. You'll get this week's recipe for the chicken and white bean stuffed peppers and access to the final quarterly live Q&A for members only at the end of September. So until next week, remember, if you're challenged by food choices or even what you see in the mirror, know that you are not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. We simply need to support our body's fundamental human biology. Well, friends, that's it for today's episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. Congratulations for making yourself and your health a priority. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to click subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform. Share us with a friend, and we'll be back next week. Always remember, you deserve it, and you are worth it. Happy healthy.